Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Kepp, a co-founder of From Day One, our forum on corporate values, and we're looking forward to hosting today's webinar. Before I do, I want to share something special we have for today's attendees. One of our monthly virtual conferences is coming up on Wednesday, August 18th, and it's titled Learning from a Crisis About What Working Parents Need. Thanks to our partners and today's sponsor, we have some complimentary VIP tickets available for those who've joined today's webinar, and that would be you. I'm putting a link in the chat right now. This is a good offer to take advantage of. The regular price for our conference tickets is $149, and this link will give you a free VIP ticket for the whole day's activities. And now on to today's webinar. We'll be exploring a topic that focuses on talent recruitment best practices and the growing demand for hourly workers. Our title is Solving the Hourly Worker Shortage Using Recruiting Tech and Data. As we've seen in the headlines, hourly workers are needed by the millions. Companies are competing strenuously to try to find them and hire them. What are the best ways for employers to gain an advantage using data and tech? Other questions we'll explore today include, what have we learned about the best pitches to prospective applicants, ranging from benefits to job titles? And how can companies track the quality of their searches? Our sponsor today is Appcast. I'll tell you a bit about them. Appcast transforms recruitment marketing by optimizing online job posting programs and helping leading organizations find and hire talent. Since 2014, Appcast has powered 610 million job postings. They've generated 7.4 billion clicks and 1.2 billion applications. They've also managed $600 million in ad spending. Now, a few quick logistical items. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand soon after the event. So you can look out for an email in about 24 hours with the link. That email will also have info for you on how you can get professional development credits for this session from the Society of Human Resource Management. And look out for a written account of the conversation soon on our website at From Day One. About 45 minutes into the session, we'll have a Q&A session. You can submit your questions anytime during the webinar, using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Now I'd like to introduce our expert moderator, Lydia Dishman, a staff editor for Fast Company, who's delved deeply into such topics as technology, leadership, and the workplace. She's written for CBS Money Watch, for Fortune, Popular Science, and the New York Times, among many others. Okay, Lydia, take it away.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks everybody for joining us today. I don't think that I need to tell anybody here that there's going to be intense competition for hourly workers this summer. U.S. employers added more than 550,000 jobs in May, and unemployment subsequently fell from 6.1% to 5.8%. Yet the gain fell well short of employers' need for labor. So we're at this inflection point. The economy is bouncing back, and that's helped along by federal aid and rising vaccination rates, but it's creating a disconnect between businesses and the unemployed. The rush to hire workers right now is bumping up against many who are looking for better work than they had before the pandemic layoffs, or they still lack affordable childcare. One economist told the Associated Press that there are still about 7 million people not searching for work, so they aren't counted as unemployed, but who say in government surveys that they do want a job. And that's about 50% higher than it was before the pandemic. So what's the best way to tap into this talent pool and get the workforce needed to grow and stay competitive? Well, we've assembled this wonderful group of professionals who are working at the intersection of this right now. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, briefly explain about your organization and the size of its workforce. So Marshela, why don't we start with you?
Fantastic, and thanks everybody for joining us today for this wonderful conversation. My name is Marshela McDaniel. I am with McDonald Corporation. I'm a field people officer for our Columbus field office, which is located in Columbus, Ohio. When I look at our brand overall, we serve about 8,500 staff, and in the United States, we hire over 1 million employees within our U.S. business. So a great opportunity to have some great discussion today with many of you professionals. So thanks for having me.
Massive amount of people. Carrie, how about you next?
Great. Well, thanks for having me as well. My name is Carrie Royer. I lead talent acquisition for Verizon globally. So Verizon is one of the world's leading providers of technology, communications, and information products and services. We have about 130,000 employees globally, and we fill about 25,000 positions each year.
Yeah, not insignificant. These are massive amounts of people. Peggy, how about you next?
Hi, I'm Peggy Anderson. I head up the talent acquisition efforts for Shutterfly. And we have several divisions that kind of roll up into Shutterfly. One is Life Touch, which is a photography company, basically, as well as a company called Borrow Lenses, which is a rental company for photographic equipment. We have about 14,000 employees, so I'm the little fish in this pond, it sounds like. And we hire a ton of seasonal workers for us. So for an example, we're currently trying to fill 3,500 seasonal photographers to go out into schools and do all of the wonderful little kid photographs this summer or this fall. So yeah, so that's who we are.
Thank you. And last but not least, Kyle.
I think my mom still has all of my old student IDs.
Count on mom, president of your fan club.
Yeah, I'm Kyle with Appcast. Appcast is a software company that really helps employers across the globe, across industries, really with their job advertising, understanding when, where, and how much to advertise across the web, be it job boards, be it social sites, be it lifestyle sites. That's really what we do. My role is to really work with clients to really understand their needs in terms of the talent that they need to find and hire, and I propose solutions that matches.
Well, Kyle, I'm going to come back to you momentarily because you're going to be my go-to trend person, but I want to ask these other women, how radically has recruiting and hiring changed over the past 18 months for each of your organizations? So let's start with what was happening at McDonald's. Marshela.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Kyle. When I look over these last 18 months, you bring up some great points. There's a lot of external factors that are just impacting the staffing piece and the staffing challenges that we've all been facing. And I think when we look at it in McDonald's, attracting candidates and hiring has definitely come top of mind for us in our business. And, our restaurants are leveraging different tools to really just enhance that overall candidate experience. And what that does is it helps us to result in hiring people faster. So we're making several updates to many of our hiring processes to offer just that really full contactless experience, but also providing assurance and security to those that are looking to apply, that not only do we have opportunities for them to start with our brand, but they also have career growth opportunities as well. Mm-hmm. And something also, the safety component of it, to really help make sure that they have that peace of mind when they're coming into work and that they feel safe and that they feel valued when they're working in the restaurant.
Well, and before we jump away to Kerry and Peggy on this question, I want to ask you, was there any sort of period of time where you were furloughing people, or did you just keep a constant stream?
One of the great things about McDonald's is we really were able to continue our momentum in regards to keeping staff employed with our brand, which I know that there were many of times where even our corporate staff had questions and concerns in regards to what they were seeing, what's happening with some of our other brands. But many times our U.S. president got on the call. We had employee calls throughout the U.S. and basically had the conversation and was very transparent in saying our number one goal is to keep everybody employed with our brand. And we're going to work through this together as a team to help us get through this hump. And so I think we've really been able to sustain that momentum with our team. And I know many of our staff and our employees are very, very appreciative, especially with everything else that was going on in the world.
Absolutely. So many people did lose their jobs. Carrie,
Yeah.
tell me what happened over the last 18 months there. And
feel like
also
rather-
that same question of were you having any layoffs?
Sure. I feel like last 18 months, it's a bit like radical changes, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, we really pulled back from hiring. So our hiring volumes dropped to almost zero. And we really started focusing instead on redeploying our internal employees. So the good news is we did not have to lay off or furlough employees. In fact, we redeployed over 15,000 employees from our retail stores into other jobs and areas of the business where we were seeing an increased demand. Then, of course, since then, you kind of started as volume picked up. It was really more a focus on internal hiring and filling those jobs internally. But now, we're back to kind of full force external and internal hiring. But as our stores started reopening, we started seeing this huge demand for our products and services, and we're now seeing record levels of openings in our retail stores. So right now, we're in the middle of one of our largest retail hiring initiatives in many years. We've hired about 1,500 employees since May, and we're still got about another 1,000 to go, plus, hiring in all other areas of the business as well. So I would say volume was a big change. This increased focus on, internal and upskilling and reskilling the folks in our organization to other roles. But also, I would just say, because of some of the talent shortage needs and high volume and entry level frontline worker roles and others, also seeing this shift into more of the skills based hiring. So those are some of the key trends that have happened here at Verizon.
Yeah, I think I remembered something about Verizon employees, even at the retail level, needing a 4-year college degree. So that's changed.
Yeah, no, it's been several years since we have had any requirements related to that. So no, we do not require a college degree at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Good context. Thank you. Peggy, last 18 months, tell us about the roller coaster.
Okay, well, it's really been a roller coaster at Shutterfly because of the dichotomy of roles that we've got within the company.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look on our Shutterfly side of the business, a lot of people don't realize a lot of our products are manufactured here in the US, and we have several large manufacturing facilities. We were hiring like gangbusters, and our competitors were the Amazons, were the Walmarts, were the UPS, were the FedEx, where semi to low skilled workers were unbelievably needed. And I've been doing this for close to 40 years. I have never seen this tight of a market during last Q4 in my lifetime. And so we were able to meet the hiring demands, but we struggled with that. Now, on the flip side, as I mentioned, Life Touch is a big part of our business. Schools were closed. So we weren't doing school photography. We did not have photographers out there doing pictures. We came up with some creative online solutions where parents could upload a picture, we'd Photoshop, put a nice background behind it, and they could use it as a school photograph. So on the Life Touch side, yes, we furloughed a lot of people. And it was very unfortunate. We tried to move those that made sense into other roles, but it was not, I couldn't rely on internal hiring like Carrie could. So it was a really hard year last year. As we picked up this year, our challenges are Life Touch, we furloughed, right? And so our brand kind of has that out there. And now all of a sudden we need to hire thousands again to support what we hope will be the opening of schools and our ability to get back out there and do that part of the business. Shutterfly, think about it. If you were at home, how many of you probably did a photo book, online photo book while you were at home? How many of you made different products that you could, share what was going on in your family with the rest of the family you weren't seeing? So Shutterfly was just going like gangbusters, and we were continuing to hire. So as people are getting back out, we're seeing that normalize just a bit. We expect Q4 to be another great quarter. So it's roller coaster is absolutely the best term to use for what we've been dealing with here at Shutterfly.
Mhm. Well, I know that it's been trying for you and challenging, but I know that, we've heard a lot of similar stories of, organizations really just like, having to scale back and then the big push forward. So we're not alone. Sometimes it helps to know that. Okay, now back to Kyle. As I said, I want to hear what has been trending then among those that you serve. Are you seeing similar type of trends to what you're hearing here?
Across the board. Hourly stuff. There really was a fundamental shift in the labor force. It really started last May of exactly what Peggy was saying in terms of the Amazons and the Walmarts. The people who, if you remember back in the very early days of the pandemic, government aid was not certain. So there were a lot of people who made shifts in industries who went to warehousing. Especially when they might be making a lot more per hour to work for the Amazons. A lot of people did go there. And so now it's really tough for a lot of our clients to go out and find a new labor force that is brand new, right? They don't have the option of bringing back, folks who were laid off or furloughed because they just don't exist anymore. They work somewhere else in a different industry.
Yeah, and that speaks to what the Economist was saying, was that they were, looking for better positions than they had before the pandemic. And certainly a lot of people who are currently employed are looking for better positions than they had before the pandemic, taking advantage of this whole notion of what more can I get from my employer in terms of flexibility and better benefits and things like that. So speaking of compensation, benefits, and all those good things, I'd like to know, again, from each of you, how your organizations are positioning themselves to draw more applicants. Have you made a point to extend those offerings of benefits or even bumped minimum wage? And we'll do the round robin again, but this time we'll go back around the other way. So Peggy.
Well, good. Since I'm the little fish, I don't have as many funds maybe available to me as the other two. So
that's okay.
I would say that, yeah, that's the reality of small to mid-sized companies, right? So what we've had to focus on, unfortunately, was not benefits, but we focused a lot on branding and how can we differentiate ourselves with similar companies that hire similar types of workers. So for example, if you think about our manufacturing facilities, because a lot of it is photographs and things like that, they're air conditioned, they're really state-of-the-art equipment, really, really nice to work at. Well, nobody would know that. So we made sure we did videos, we made sure we had testimonials. We've been spending a lot more on just creating the images and the story to go with our brand that we hope will differentiate ourselves, since we don't have a lot of the other things to differentiate us. We've been doing creative advertising. We've gone back to billboards. Who would have thought?
Really?
Yeah, we've got a billboard right outside one of our manufacturing facilities that just says we're hiring. We're going to be in theaters near where we have manufacturing facilities.
Okay.
Go sit in a movie, you're going to see a big screen that says Shutterfly's hiring, and how to do it. Again, a little old fashioned, but we have to go to where our candidates are.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, for hourly workers, a large percentage of them they're not sitting on LinkedIn. Right. So we focus a lot on Indeed and Glassdoor. We have done some things around our compensation. As you know, McDonald's included. I was driving today and saw a big McDonald's billboard that said hiring bonuses or sign-on bonus. Yeah, I saw it. I saw it.
Yeah,
So-
I was going to ask Marshela about that specifically because I've seen those too.
Yeah, so
So-
you see their slushy drinks on one side and hiring bonuses on the
Yeah.
other side. Pretty cool. So we're having to compete with some of that and get as
Mhm.
creative as we can
Mhm.
to get in front of our candidates, increase our comp. But so far we're not doing sign-on bonuses.
Mhm.
Could happen as we continue down this path between now and the end of the year. And we're having, from a process standpoint, we're having to increase the amount of time. So if we interview someone, we
Mhm.
need to be able to quickly make a decision and make an offer. You can't leave
Yeah.
people hanging around. And
Mhm.
for our seasonal photographers, where we hire them and they might not start for a month, there's a lot of extra work my team and the managers are doing to
Mhm.
stay connected, have conversations. So there's a lot more heavy
Mhm.
lifting, Lydia, than what we've done in the past just to get the pipeline built and maintain the candidates once we find them until they start.
Yeah, I'm glad you said the word pipeline because I want to come back to that. But since you name checked McDonald's, I want to ask about that. So, how the minimum wage has increased at McDonald's, Marshela? She's connecting to audio. I think we might have lost her. Can you hear me, Marshela?
Yeah, I couldn't. My
Oh.
phone dropped. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. I was just
Oh,
saying,
okay.
so yeah,
Fantastic.
did you increase the minimum wage or was that just not advertised before?
Yeah, so when we looked at our brand, we've got kind of two different pathways, right? So one pathway that we have is for our corporate-owned restaurants, and then another pathway that we have is our franchisee-owned restaurants. Which each of our franchisee-owned restaurants, those are individually owned and operated by those individual owner-operators. And so when we looked at our corporate-owned restaurants, we reevaluated where we were in regards to benefits and pay, and really wanted to ensure that we were not only being competitive, but we were also trying to lead in different areas of our industry. And so what we did was we looked at the 36,500 hardworking employees that are currently with our brand, and we made a commitment to increase their wages on average of 10%. And in addition to that, we shifted some of those starting wages. So for our crew, which is our hourly employees, they can begin pay in those corporate-owned restaurants anywhere between $11 and $17 an hour. And then for our shift managers, we increased their starting rate anywhere between $15 to $20 an hour. And obviously, all of that is just based on the restaurant location. But in conjunction with that, many of our owner-operators, our franchisees, have also went back and reevaluated what their benefits and their offerings are within their organizations as well. And many of them have decided to be just as competitive in some of the local markets that they serve. But they're also looking at different benefits that they're able to utilize to recruit talent. And so Peggy mentioned one. So a lot of our operators have joined into the sign-on bonus idea to try to help attract and bring in people quickly. Many of our operators are looking at flexibility in regards to scheduling, understanding that we do serve a population that many people either go to school or they have a second job or maybe they're supporting and serving their family. So we really wanted to create that flexibility in the scheduling process as well. And then many of our operators have looked at just various additional benefits, such as maybe free or discounted meals, maybe free or discounted uniforms. Really, they're trying to appeal to the community in which they serve. And so this is something that I think it's not just a one-stop shop, right? We're going to have to continue to evaluate the benefits offering and even understanding what that wage piece of it looks like as we continue to move forward, especially in the employment space that we're in today.
Yeah, for sure. And didn't we discuss the McDonald's own stores offering some sort of childcare component as well? Is that right?
Yeah, so what we're looking at now, and we've started it a little bit with our staff already, and we're going to be exploring this as well with our corporate-owned restaurants as a test. And it's really not necessarily the childcare piece, it's really more of a backup care, right? So in the instance that maybe there's something that's happening and all of a sudden I need backup care, there's different organizations that we're able to support or that we're able to partner with that might provide some sort of backup childcare option for these parents. And so that's something that we're really starting to, I'd say, dip our toe in the water a little bit now, just to see, not only is this something that we'll be able to bring to life and make it as a great option and benefit for many of our working parents or even those watching elderly parents, because that would be included in that as well.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
then even looking to see, how do we potentially scale that if it is something that we find internally would be a great value.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the sandwich generation, we just can't overlook how challenging it is
Absolutely.
for people to do, children on one hand and elders on the other. Kerry,
Absolutely.
changes in comp benefits? Anything else?
Yeah, so I would say we've always had like a pretty strong benefit package that we've leveraged, right? And so when we talk about getting more applicants, it's also a focus on getting the right applicants.
Right.
And really focus on finding those quality candidates who, especially in our retail stores, right, have a passion for customer service, have an interest in our products and services, and can help customers figure out what those solutions are that are going to be best for them. So we rely pretty heavily on, our media efforts, but the messaging is all around what is it that Verizon can do for you? What is the employer value proposition that we're offering, and engaging with them on what's important to them, because, that we do serve a lot of different types of candidates, but in the frontline space, they really do care about those kind of key benefits. So really focusing on the fact that we offer benefits day one. And another thing about the frontline workers is they're often really interested in what is my opportunity for moving up in the company? What are you going to do to develop me? And so we really focus in our messaging the importance of, hey, you'll have, there is a career path here for you. We launched something at Verizon that we're calling our Talent GPS, which basically provides, a clear idea of what are the roles we have in the organizations, what are the skills you need, and the path to kind of achieve that. We really focus our messaging to our candidates on what is important to them. In terms of, extra benefits or anything, I would just say we really doubled down on how we showed up during COVID. So kind of some of the things, Marshela was saying around our, backup care, our sick leave. We had a COVID sick leave where we, paid them 100% of pay for up to 8 weeks and reduced 60% of pay for 16 weeks, and really just showing how, in an unstable times, we showed up and you can depend on us as an employer. And that's been, our key message as we talk to candidates.
Yeah, I think that there's probably nothing that shows a candidate that you value them as a person than offering them those human benefits. It's not just the transactional, like, here's your paycheck, don't let the door hit your butt on the way out kind of thing. It's like, what are you doing around that to serve the whole person? So Kyle, slightly different question for you. So obviously you're seeing a lot of these trends come through, and I'm wondering if you've seen also the way people even approach writing job descriptions changing.
Yeah, when you look at restaurant and retail workers, just about half of the population historically have been women. And that is exactly the population that left the workforce. Take care of children, take care of elderly parents. That said, there are keywords in job descriptions that you should be cognizant of. Gender-coded keywords, male-coded words like superior, like decision, confident. Then female-coded words like interpersonal, cooperative, warm. We put together a study in partnership with the university, and pretty much across the board, what we found, looking particularly at our data set, was that these gender-coded words, they prevent you from getting as many candidates as possible. They turn off certain folks who read those descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
Across the board, we really recommend, removing those gender coded words. Now, in some cases, in some industries, having those coded words can result in a lower cost per hire, but you're not able to hire as many people as you need, because it's turning some folks away. We did a white paper. I'm going to put that in the chat just so that everyone can download that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it breaks it out by industry, just so that you can.
Yeah, that's good food for thought, because I was, thinking about, the mention of the pipeline. And we often hear there's a pipeline problem when it comes to hiring underrepresented candidates. However, it feels like there's a pipeline problem, if you will, right now, just in general for hourly workers, given what these numbers are, how many employers need to hire versus how many people are out there actively looking for work. So do you think there's a pipeline problem? Is there some trend that speaks to the fact that there aren't as many workers looking for jobs from what you're seeing, Kyle?
Yes, and no. Yes, no. It really varies by region. It really varies by industry. In some industries, they're having a great pipeline of candidates, across different communities. The biggest thing that we're seeing is that, especially for hourly workers, it's not necessarily getting people into the hiring pipeline. It's getting back to those folks as quickly as possible. Peggy was saying,
Yep.
get the offer out there as quick as you can, but just responding to the applicant the same day is huge, right? If you're Applebee's and you get a candidate for a line cook, look, that line cook needs a job yesterday, right? That person is not going to wait 2 to 3 days to hear back from you, right? That person is going to go, or they're going to go to Amazon. Biggest challenge that our clients typically see.
Yeah, and I did want to ask you, the rest of you, about time to hire, because I remember reading something a few years ago. I think it was a Glassdoor survey that, obviously divided up by industry, but, time to hire could be as much as 3 to 4 weeks. And that was stretching even for hourly workers, that it could take 2 weeks to hire an hourly worker. So what is realistic now? How quickly can you get people in the door? Peggy?
Yeah, that's a good question. We track it, but we track it at the aggregate. And so I haven't pulled out, what's happening with our hourly workers versus the rest. I will tell you, we've done a lot more volume interview days, which allows us to quickly identify candidates and get them into one place, get them through, or even virtual interviews, honestly, too. We do both. But get them through the process much more quickly. So I could say that we're probably down to 2 weeks, which is still too long. But by the time you have to reach out to the candidates, schedule, all of that, we've still got work to do, honestly. And I've been talking to the leadership about that. How do we condense this? How do we make decisions early? How do we get maybe a hiring team, so you don't need to have every hiring group in the process? You get a hiring team, you trust their decision, and we're able to place the new hires into the areas that make the most sense. So I don't have the magic bullet. I would say it probably is still taking us 2 weeks. So what's important to us is, at the time that we interview, we need to make a decision quick, and we need to get an offer out, because I can't control that, right? And the rest of it is like what Kyle was saying. I have to have a candidate pool. I have to make sure the managers are eliminating as much bias as possible and really thinking about what's needed for the job, right? And so having them even rethink, what decisions they make for hires. You still want the talent, you still want the best people, and you don't want high attrition and turnover.
Sure.
But really stepping back and making sure you're really certain about what are the requirements. for this role.
Mhm.
And am I focusing on that, or am I focusing on they had a stain on their shirt when they walked in, right? So those kinds of things.
Carrie, you had mentioned the skills-based part of this. Is that facilitating the time to hire, or how long is it taking, just on average? Do you know?
Yeah, it depends on the group. And to Peggy's point, when I look at it in aggregate, you have to think there's, I think, over 1,500 retail stores across the US. So you're going to have in a, more rural area, it's going to take a little bit longer. And so to me, I really want to emphasize that speed is not everything, right? And I think that's kind of some of the things Peggy was saying is it's making sure you keep human in the process too, because there's a lot of things you can do in your process to, hire people in a week. Just let technology do it right for you all the way through. But we believe at Verizon that there should be a human in the process, and it should be, thinking about the candidate experience all along the way. And I get Kyle's point that, responding quickly, keeping them updated throughout the process. These are all things that are extremely important, or you will lose, folks, and you won't be able to hit your hiring goals. So, so speed is important, but it's not everything. And we are seeing, about 30 days in our retail stores in aggregate. But again, you're going to see that much faster in certain parts of the country than others.
Okay. Marshela?
Yeah, so we currently leverage an internal platform. It's called McHire that we use in our corporate-owned restaurants, and then many of our owner-operator organizations are leveraging the tool as well. And really what it is, it's basically an AI-centered employee candidate tracking tool that really helps us to not only increase the pace in which we're able to hire individuals, but it also just helps us to elevate that overall candidate experience. So as Kyle mentioned before, understanding that as I look to apply for the company, is somebody going to respond back to me, or is somebody going to keep me abreast about what's the next step of the process? What phase am I in of the interviewing process? And with a tool such as our McHire tool, it's able to do that. And so we've implemented that in our restaurants, and owner-operators that have chosen to leverage this in their hiring process are utilizing it as well. And we've seen some great improvements overall. I'd say we were initially, when I look back, we were initially in that double-digit form where we were taking longer to hire people in. And, as we talked about, as you mentioned earlier around the pipeline, it's a competitive market. As people are looking to apply, they're not just looking at one location. They're looking at multiple locations and trying to understand who's going to get back to me, which is going to give me the best opportunity and fit my needs as an employee. And so we've been able to really reduce that time to hire process down to right now, we're roughly at about 8 days. And we're continuing to see improvements in those numbers. And so our goal is just going to be to continue to, like Carrie mentioned, create that experience where not only does the employee feel engaged in the process and understand, but we're really able to really set that great first impression just in that hiring process.
Kyle, with this mention of artificial intelligence as a partner in this endeavor, how do you see this unfolding? I mean, obviously it has to be a balance between human and machine, but what are some things that people should keep in mind if they're going to use AI?
We've had a lot of clients tell us that they've actually steered away from some chatbots because candidates are concerned, hey, are they speaking with a robot? And is that robot going to take my information, steal my identity, whatever? So to Carrie's point of, yes, having that human element for a lot of the touch points is very important, right? But the simple status updates, just getting back to someone, tools that can, quickly screen, quickly match, and then communicate through that process. That keeps folks on the hook.
And since you mentioned chatbots, are they, like when an employer is getting back to a candidate, is it through like a text message, or is it some other way?
It varies. Text is the predominant method of communication right now. If there was a story in the news about a fast food chain who they went through their CRM And they were offering opportunities to people who had applied 3 years ago, and they were emailing them. I thought that was interesting because one was 3 years ago, and two, they were emailing hourly workers. Hourly workers are not checking their emails.
I remember when that happened. Yeah, that's just like, what, definite disconnect there.
Right. Text has proven to be, the method of choice for people who are everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily sitting in front of their computer, like checking their email.
Yeah, absolutely. The phone is in their pocket. So before we get to the audience Q&A, this is the other thing that's on my mind about, this idea of virtual hiring. And the answers have varied widely when I've asked this of people from different organizations. But if part of the interview process is virtual, what are you doing differently to assess those candidates? If you're not, Peggy, did you mention something about the stain on the shirt? And, but you can see that, yes, sort of, but like you can't shake somebody's hand. You can't read their body language below the frame of the screen. What are you doing differently to assess? What are some best practices?
Yeah, that's interesting because we, at the drop of a flip of the switch, we went to all virtual right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I think in the beginning, there was just a stiffness around it. Hiring managers were concerned. How can I hire this person when I've never even met them? And over the course of the next few months, they realized it works fine. My fear is that we go back to the old way, honestly, because we've shown that we can do this quickly. The scheduling doesn't take as long. We can make an assessment. We can make great hires, and we can have people start. Mm-hmm. With the hourly workers, it is a little bit more difficult. So for our manufacturing hires in particular, they would still come in. We would have to maintain social distancing, and we would have to space it out. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense, more than what we did in the past. So it was a combination of the two. But I think our culture, we've got a very casual culture, so there's very few people that would take, some of the more benign reasons not to hire into hiring. We recently just even started on-demand video screening. So we can reach out to a lot more candidates at one time. And it's really a recruiter tool. So I don't have to worry about a manager making a decision based on it. But it's an opportunity for us to get kind of that view. And before we move on, I thought of something around the previous question that I just wanted to bring up. So with our hourly photographers of thousands and thousands, and because we hire them for fall starts, we actually created a college intern recruiter program. So we bring in about 30 college interns to come in over the summer. Now they're all sitting at home now. They're all sitting at home virtually, and they're sourcing. So they are contacting people that have not applied. I am not relying solely on candidate applications. And they're given kind of a goal of how many people they need to contact and talk to drive it. So that definitely, and we're totally using texting. So it definitely has improved our ability to reach out. But back to the original question, it really is not that difficult anymore, and I'm happy. I think it's kind of the future way to get this done and to get candidates in quickly.
Yeah, video interviewing is not new, but it just became way more prevalent during these last 16, 18 months. Kerry, what are you seeing? What are some best practices with virtual interviewing?
Yeah, I just want to say, ditto, Peggy, we've been actually using on-demand video interviews for our high volume in our hourly worker space since before the pandemic. And so the shift then was the hiring manager interview was in person, and we shifted that to virtual. So same thing, I would just reiterate that this is our new normal. And in fact, a lot of times hiring managers are now saying, oh, well, we need to get them back in person. And I'm like, but do you? You know, like there's a lot of benefit for the candidate, for, you know, scheduling, convenience, to keep these virtual. And so while there's, you know, a familiarity and a comfort level for us to be doing these in person, I think the future of interviewing is virtual. You know, of course, at more senior levels, or, you know, when you're making a decision on the environment and the culture, or maybe in a warehouse factory, I could see that being, hey, maybe bring them in a later stage. But, you know, virtual is where it's at, in my opinion.
Okay. And Marshela, any best practice hints for doing any virtual?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny, Carrie, because there's definitely a luxury in that face-to-face experience. And, you know, as we're continuing to look at different ways to bring that virtual experience to life, you know, it's a decision that's made by each restaurant individually and by each owner-operator individually. And it's also dependent on the community in which they live in, right? So some of our more urban areas, it's very common, and so it's something that's done, but maybe some of our more rural areas, it's not as well received. And so we try to keep that variety. We want to make sure that we're very inclusive in the hiring process. And so we leverage, you know, the tool, as I mentioned before, the McHire tool is another tool that we've integrated now, a virtual hiring experience where the candidate can there's a couple of options actually for that virtual experience. The candidate can do a recording of themselves. The manager will ask some predetermined questions, and the candidate will then go in and do a pre-recording of themselves, and the video would then be an on-demand video that the manager would be able to watch when they're ready, and then reach out to the candidate and communicate what the next steps look like. But there's also an opportunity for them to go into a web discussion, right? Just like we're doing here today, where we could do more of a live interviewing experience based on the candidate and the manager's availability. So I know many of our organizations have been leveraging these types of virtual experiences, but I can't say that it's a one-size-fits-all. I know that each owner-operator, each restaurant is really identifying solutions that are best met for them. But even if I look at just some of the creativeness of some of our restaurant teams, you know, we've been doing things such as drive-up interviews, right? A lot of opportunities, which is something different, right? I don't think we've really heard or seen that in some of our markets, but a lot of our restaurants have really taken this idea and ran with it, where we would used to do a hiring event where you'd come into the restaurant, you'd meet the team, you'd have a one-on-one interview, and then a decision would be made in regards to the next steps for employment. Now, in some of our restaurants, they'll do hiring events where it's a drive-up experience. Well, they'll be able to drive up, they'll fill out an application online, and then they'll have a chance to right there have a conversation with that manager without even getting out of their car. So as I alluded to at the beginning, just really trying to create different experiences that engages at a higher level, but then also helps that applicant feel safe and feel like they're coming into an environment that's going to be supportive of them and what their values are aligned with ours.
When you said drive up, I was thinking about drive through, and
oh no,
I was just about to make a really bad joke about fries with that, but anyway. Okay, we have a lot of questions from the audience. So in the last minutes, I'm going to invite Steve to come back on briefly.
Thanks. This is fascinating to hear what's happening behind all those headlines about hourly workers. Thanks to all of you who are participating in this webinar on solving the hourly worker shortage using recruiting tech and data, and our sponsor Appcast. Once again, in case you missed it at the beginning of this event, I'm going to share something special we have for today's attendees. One of our monthly virtual conferences is coming up on Wednesday, August 18th, and it's titled Learning from a Crisis About What Working Parents Need. Thanks to today's sponsor, we're offering a complimentary VIP ticket to everyone who's attending this webinar today. These are normally $149, so you're welcome to grab one while you can. I placed the link in the chat again. With that out of the way, at this time, we'll be taking some questions from our audience. Back to you, Lydia.
Thank you. Yes, we are tight on time, so we'll try to get to as many of these as possible and keep the responses brief. But we have a couple on advertising. If you're spending a lot to advertise job openings, how do you make sure you're not wasting money? What helps efficiency? Is there a good way to get fast feedback on your ads so you can fine tune the language or targeting? So who wants to take this one first? Carrie?
Sure. Listen, I'm super passionate about this. I bet Kyle has a thing or two to say about this one as well. But you know, we work really hard to make sure that the investment that we're putting into our media is paying off. So we do look at, we look at clicks and impressions from our media. We look at our applicant data, and we look at how they progress through the funnel. The other thing that we do is we look at what we call quality applications. So who are the people that applied that made it to a hiring manager interview? So again, this goes back to my point about it's not just
Uh-oh. Did we lose her? Okay. Kyle, you want to jump in real quick?
Sure. This is going to be a shameless plug for Appcast. But you can use programmatic job advertising software like the solutions that Appcast has. In a nutshell, what our software and what our solutions do, we look at, instead of having recruiters and hiring managers have to go inside the ATS, figure out which jobs don't have enough candidate flow, and then really, manually advertise those roles, have to, guess where they're going to, advertise to get the best ROI. Software like Appcast really allows you to outsource that function. So our software is looking inside the ATS. It is flagging jobs before there's a problem in terms of candidate supply. And then using our data set, we take those jobs and we advertise them across a network of 10,000 different sites, just depending upon where peer employers with similar roles in similar locations have been able to find hireable candidates in the past. So, in terms of speed to get your jobs ads out there, in terms of adding a layer of predictability as to whether or not those ads are actually going to provide hireable candidates or not, software like ours really helps do that.
We have a lot of questions around background checks. Phyllis, Matthew, and Earl, and as well as some others, all are asking about if you do background checks. If so, because you want workers quickly, do you start them before the check is completed, starting the workers before they completed? Matthew's asking about marijuana legalization. Are companies removing drug testing as part of the hiring process? And how you've handled background check challenges. So who's doing background checks, first of all? There you go, Peggy. Why don't you take that one?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So no, we won't start you without a completed background check. And that was difficult during COVID. So we made a few changes during COVID when a lot of the state and local places were closed and we couldn't get confirmation. Once they reopened, we went back to our normal practice, which is you don't start unless your background check is cleared. So agreed, I get an offer out. That's why it's so key of keeping that candidate warm between the time they accept the offer to the time they start. I will say we don't do drug testing. So that's not an issue that we have to deal with as part of employment. So it is part of if there's an accident or something happens, then we would do drug testing, but not as a condition of employment. So not an issue we deal with.
Right. Anyone else want to weigh in on the drug testing part of the background check? Is anyone doing drug testing? No? Okay. All right, let's see. Any examples of recruiting techniques or pitches that did not work and what you learned from that? You want to talk about challenges, or Kyle, you can do that, and, without giving away anybody's name. Any pitches that didn't work?
curious if anyone has done TikTok videos, because that's the new rage. You know, we've seen clients try a lot of things. They've gotten a lot of creative. You know, I really find that just using the nuts and bolts of getting your job ads out there as quickly as possible. Again, reaching out to those candidates as quickly as possible. Maybe even foregoing some of the interviews for maybe some back of the house position. That's really helped a lot of our clients. But I always encourage folks to be creative, try new things, because of course there's something out there that nobody's tried that is going to be unique, and you know, hopefully it'll produce something.
Marshela, did you want to add? You're still on mute. Tiny technical difficulties today. No, it didn't connect. That's okay. Peggy, do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that we implemented probably around 12 months ago that has been difficult for some of our hiring managers is I want job postings that are mobile ready, that you don't have to go through 10 pages on your mobile phone to read all of the job postings. So it's how do you condense, consolidate, make it something that people want to apply for, but you don't have to include the whole kitchen sink. So it's been a change management for the company, but it's really proven to be beneficial in that I've been able to track and see our candidate applicants per position, and I can track it based on, are they short, are they long, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So highly recommend, just keep it short, sweet, keep it something that can engage the candidate and can quickly get them to apply.
And I would recommend, like you were saying, Peggy, really test that out, right? Because if it is super short, the quality of that candidate is naturally going to go down. It's just a fact. But really, you know, the old 3-page, 45-minute application, that was an anachronism of the past, right? We took that paper application and we put it into software, and it's like, for a line cook, do you really need to know? Really need to know like what high school and what GPA they had? I don't think so.
Nobody cares about your GPA. Go ahead, Marshela.
Try this again. Can you hear me this time?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. All right. You know, I was just gonna say a lot of what Kyle was saying around just being creative in regards to the recruitment process around applicants. I don't believe it's a one size fits all. I think we definitely have to explore just different opportunities. So social media might be one component. I know Peggy mentioned billboards as an option, attracting people with various benefits. A lot of our owner operators and our corporate owned restaurants are very involved in the communities that they serve. And so in those community partnerships, they're also able to communicate and recruit through various programs that might be offered in the community, with their partnerships with various schools, with fundraising events, you name it. So I really believe that just getting out and getting the word out and letting people know a little bit more about your brand and what you have to offer, as well as what that career path option looks like for them. I think Carrie mentioned before that a lot of times people are coming in and they don't want just the first job. They want to know that there's growth potential for them as well. But continuing to share that story and create that narrative will help you to really attract some great employees to your teams.
We have just about another minute, and Cassie and others are asking about hiring bonuses. Has there been any impact on retention? And another was asking, do you see that they're collecting the bonus and quitting? So basically, does the hiring bonus translate to better retention?
I'm going to assume that's for me. Is that for me?
Both of you, but just, yeah.
Okay.
Jam it out.
Yeah, it's definitely a risk that you take, when you're trying to bring people into the door, and so when you're looking at various attraction methods, such as a hiring bonus, many of our owner-operators leverage that tool in different ways. So some might give you a hiring bonus, which is an immediate bonus. Some of them might do it after 60 days. Some of them might do it after 90 days to try to get people to really understand the brand, understand the culture, and really understand their work environment. So there's different methods in which they leverage this as a way to bring people in the door. But I think in the space that we're in today in regards to employment, there's definitely going to be a risk in regards to turnover, but that's something we have to continue to work against.
And we've seen trucking companies offer hiring bonuses, sign-on bonuses for years, if not decades. Trucking percent turnover, truckers stay with the company for 3 months and then they move on. I think a subsidy for childcare would.
Carrie, do you want to just add something real quick?
Just echo, we aren't seeing again, it's not just about the bonus itself, but it's about what I get and what I get out of the value proposition of Verizon. So, we don't use them often, but in markets like this, it's like a little extra thing we do to get attention, but we use our core benefits to sell the candidates and keep them.
Well, audience had so many questions, so we could have easily gone for another hour, but this is our time. So Peggy, Kyle, Marshela, and Kerry, thank you very much for spending this time with me. You've been very valuable with your insights. Back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Lydia, and to each and every one of our speakers. That was a great conversation about something that's so much in the news and important for our economy. Thanks to our sponsor, Appcast, and to all of you for participating today. If you'd like to join us for more virtual events, you can head to our website, fromday1.co, and check out more of our upcoming webinars. To be specific, this Thursday, July 29th, our focus is, for a diverse workforce, are your financial benefits fair and equitable? On Thursday, August 5th, we'll be looking at 4 ways data-focused talent acquisition teams differ from others. And on Thursday, August 12th, we'll be talking about hiring for teams with the right combination of soft skills. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and please stay well.